All right. Hello, everybody. I hope you all are doing well. This is the NBA Tournament Strategy Show where we look at last night's slate, see how that went, what went well, what might not have gone as well. And then on this show, we go game by game, talk through guys that we like pretty early. But then on the pre-lock show, that's where at 5:30 p.m. Eastern time, that's when we really talk about leverage plays, core plays, how I'm using the domination station that night, and go from there. So appreciate you all for checking in, and let's look at last night's slate. Honestly, not my best slate. Was not a good one. Uh, but it was weird because it was like the first time I've had a losing night in a while, at least since the All-Star break, and maybe a few slates before that too. So it was like a nice come to Jesus moment of like, okay, we're not always gonna be right about everything. Uh, but also, this was the $100,000 winning lineup last night, and pretty much there weren't any chalky plays here. Everyone outside of DeAndre Ayton was below 5% ownership. We don't see this very often, but it's always interesting when we do. It does make me feel better when we see it like this. It just kind of means that it was one of those slates where you really just need to completely fade the chalk. Thomas Dye, good to see you, man. Appreciate you joining. Uh Let's look at these players. So Devin Booker was a B-Dubs leverage play. B-Dubs is one of the coaches here at DFS Army. He has a leverage sheet right next to mine on our website. So that was a really good call by him. Zach LaVine wasn't on my radar. Bogdanovich, we talked about a little bit on this show, I believe. The Pistons were interesting, but it was hard to make a case for them over the Laker value. But clearly it still worked out. Al Horford had a fantastic game. I was on Time Lord side. I wasn't on the Al Horford side, but at least one of them got there, so I feel a little bit better about that. DeAndre Ayton was a leverage play. I was not on Patrick Beverly, Josh Okogie, or Cole Anthony. So good. Congrats to whoever did well there. One of the DFS Army members still had a fantastic night, though. My guy, Cheesesteak Heads, got first place on FanDuel in his contest, won about $2,500. So definitely a solid day in the office for him. Dave, good to see you, man. And yeah, good morning. It's a little afternoon for me, but yeah, CST time, nothing wrong with it. And yeah, if you all could hit the like button, share, and subscribe, would really appreciate y'all for that. We have a lot of great content on the channel. We do prize picks as well, and that's been crushing lately. My guy Sniper does that work, so definitely recommend checking that out too. Let's get into today's slate. We have a nice 4-game slate on deck, which is nice for me because it's a little bit easier for me to wrap my head around all the craziness. Uh, First game, we have the Raptors against the Wizards. Uh, Common trait on this slate so far, there's like one or two like really big questionable tags, but for the most part, pretty healthy slate. Would love some weird news to switch things up a little bit, but for now, pretty tame. But for the Raptors, everyone's pretty much healthy, so nothing to worry about too much for them. The thing that I love about the Raptors that we don't see with other teams as much is that their starters are run into the ground. They play high 30 minutes every single slate. And so I'm always more willing to take shots on these guys on small slates because I at least know they will see run as long as they stay out of foul trouble. I can almost guarantee that I will have 2 leverage plays here, Pascal Siakam and Jakob Poeltl. As long as their ownership stays pretty tame, for me on a 4-gamer, pretty easy spots. For Jakob Poeltl, his price tag is just still too cheap for a guy who has a really good points per minute rating, and he's playing more minutes with the Raptors. And as long as he keeps seeing this run, would love if he can get into the lower 30s tonight. Really good spot for him. We've been playing bigs against the Wizards for a while just because they're not a great rebounding team. So a spot that I like enough to make him a leverage play. As long as, like I said, nothing crazy happens on this slate. Pascal Siakam, we've been on this train for a while now. Every blue moon, it will pan out for us. I do worry about how Siakam's being impacted by Jakob Poeltl, but the sim model likes Siakam a good bit. I'm going to keep riding the train. I'll at least be around field weight exposure. I'm still going back and forth on if he's going to be a leverage play for me. I'm considering it, but I haven't pulled the trigger yet. And if he is a leverage play for me, then I'll be like at least 20% or above on him. For me, leverage plays are double the field. Fred VanVleet, another guy I like here, really just because of his minutes upside. And if his shot's falling, very efficient player. Scotty Barnes is also on my radar, along with Gary Trent Jr. So pretty much all the guys who see minutes on this team are guys that I'm considering, but Jakob Poeltl and Siakam are the guys that I know for sure I'll have exposure to. Next up, we have the Washington Wizards. And once again, they're pretty healthy. Monty Morris is still out, so my guy Delon Wright will still see some solid minutes. I think most of us know Wright is someone that can be a little bit risky of a play sometimes at 4,600. He's not the extreme value he was before in the past. He does take on the vast majority of the facilitating duties on this team. So that's something that does increase his value as long as he gets some assists. If he lets some shots fall, he should be able to get there. He is the chalky value option on the slate right now. We've seen him break slates as well, kind of like Matisse Thybulle. Like, there's a chance he goes out there and does jack shit, but there's also a chance he might go out there and, shoot some threes, get some nice assists, maybe a rebound or two, and really exceed value and break the slate. So I'm still kind of going back and forth on it, to be honest. The ownership is kind of the only reason why I'm questioning it, but more than likely I'll probably be at least around field weight. Bradley Beal's on my radar as a potential leverage play. I always like him more when Porzingis and other people are out or Kuzma's out, but he's definitely, the sim model likes him a good bit, so he's on my radar for that reason. And 16% ownership on a 4-game slate isn't crazy. I can still put a 30% minimum on him and get some decent leverage. It's just Beal's been very hit or miss this entire season. He finally had a decent stretch over the last few games, and I don't know if I really want to stay on this train, but more than likely I will. Porzingis and Kuzma are fine, but they're not standing out for me too much, but we'll see if that changes by the time we hit the pre-lock show. What's up? Good to see you. Thank you for watching, man. Next up, we have the Sixers against the Mavericks. This is a very interesting game to me, too. Joel Embiid is currently listed as TBD, so we will see. He didn't play yesterday, which was kind of surprising, because on the pre-lock show, I was like, yeah, Joel Embiid's questionable. He's always questionable, whatever. And then he ended up not playing, which was funny. So, maybe he won't play today, but I think more than likely he probably will if I had to take a guess here. If Joel Embiid does play, we don't have him in the domination station right now because it's still early, and he, still early, so we don't know if he's going to play or not yet. But if he does play, I like Joel Embiid in this spot. The Mavericks are a weird team, so they're not a good defensive team. They just play at a slow pace, so it's usually hard for our stud performers to have ceiling performances against the Mavericks. But not because the matchup's tough, it's just the game's played at a slower rate. But the things that I like is that the game total isn't super low, so that's nice. They're really bad defending in the front court. Joel Embiid's honestly my ideal play, but of course, if Joel Embiid ends up being out, then this ownership will more than likely stay true, if not higher. And your guys like James Harden, Harris, Maxey, and Melton all become solid, honestly pretty good plays, and I will have exposure to all four. I don't know exactly what they're going to do at center, so I'll need to look into that a little bit more, to be honest, to see if I want to take a shot on it. But I'll probably, like, if they're going to be low owned, I might have like 5-10% on them, but I don't trust the Sixers and their center rotation enough to really want to go over the field on it, but we'll see what happens there. But basically, I do like the studs from this game, which is a little bit different for me. Said, do you go live before lock on YouTube? I do go live before lock on YouTube, but it's only for VIP members. So unfortunately, it's not available to the public. I put the link in our Discord, and only people who are in the Discord or who look at our website can access it. If you want to become a VIP member, though, there's a link in the description. But if not, hopefully see you tomorrow for this show again. For the Mavericks, They are looking pretty healthy too. Christian Wood was not on the injury report. Bertans is out. It's such a weird dynamic here. Thankfully, Doncic isn't 12K plus, so that's nice. But his upside has not been there really as much with Kyrie Irving. His usage rate has decreased by 3.9%. Um, and it's really just not fantastic in general. So not the biggest fan of Doncic, but because it's a 4-game slate, we need raw points. So I'm not going to X Doncic out of my player pool, but because he's just trending in not the best direction and he's still really expensive, he's not a guy that I'm trying to force a ton of exposure to. And we don't have a lot of value on this slate. So I do think this ownership is probably going to be more realistic than it would be if we get some weird news and some stud ends up being out and we have a ton of value. That's a situation where I'll be okay with having more Doncic. But where we stand right now, just not my favorite spot for him. Kyrie Irving getting decent ownership is interesting. Let me see if the sim model feels any kind of way about him. 9,400. Yeah, not a fan. Not a fan. Doesn't mean that he's unplayable, but I didn't think it was the best spot, and I feel better about it with when the sim model agrees with me. I'm not really a fan of this either, and that's because the Sixers are a good defense and a team that I don't like to pick on in general. So it's hard for me to find a really good reason to play him while he's still 9,400. If he was 6K like Christian Wood, might consider it a bit more. Also, Kyrie Irving should be learning he is not the guy. In their last game, he took the final shot. He missed when it should really be Luka taking the final shot. So I think he's slowly but surely starting to realize that he's no longer the guy on the team. So I'll take more shots on him when his price tag goes down. Tim Hardaway Jr. is probably the only other guy I would consider actively putting into my lines tonight. And I say actively because I let the domination station do its thing, but I make like probably 10 to 20 active, like big changes. So if I don't have enough Tim Hardaway Jr., I'll probably just increase my exposure to him a little bit, probably to be close to around field weight, just because if his shot's falling at 5,200, he could be a little sneaky with some upside. It's not something we see very often, but again, on a 4-game slate, I'm more so willing to take shots like that. Sim model likes him too, so that helps. Next up, we have the Pacers. So this is probably the team that has the highest chance of giving us value on this slate. So right now we have Tyrese Halliburton listed as questionable. We've seen Halliburton play through the questionable tag before, so it wouldn't be shocking if he does end up playing here. It would just be a lot more fun if he didn't play. But, we can't control our fate. For now, we'll pretend like he's playing. If he plays, he's facing the Spurs. The Spurs are the worst defense in the NBA. You can attack them at every position, and Tyrese Halliburton honestly would be in a fantastic spot. So if he plays, I plan on having exposure, and I'll be totally fine being over the field on him here. Oh, the spread's not even that wide, which is nice to see too. I am totally fine with Miles Turner. It looks like he's going to be chalky, so that's not shocking. I'm okay with him as chalk. I don't know how much I feel comfortable going over the field, but I'm okay with being closer to field weight. Buddy Hield, solid spot for him too. He's seeing decent minutes. The guys that I start to question more so are guys like Mathurin. I'm just not a guy that loves playing him when Halliburton's healthy. If, as I do research throughout the day, there's a good enough reason to do it, I'm not going to fade it just to fade it. But as of right now, I'm just not really a huge fan. But we'll see where we land. If Halliburton's out, then I'm much more of a fan of Mathurin, Nesmith, McConnell, Nimbard. All four are guys that increase in how excited I would be to play them, but also all Mathurin, Turner, and Nimbard really see a nice increase in usage when Halliburton ends up being out. So that's pretty much how I'm treating them. As of right now, the guys I really trust here are Halliburton, and then I'm okay with Turner and Hield, but their ownership is freaking me out a little bit, but the soft matchup makes it make sense. But if I can find a reason to not do it, I'll probably try and go under on them, but more than likely, I probably won't find that reason, to be honest. And then for the Spurs, my favorite team in the NBA, That was sarcasm for those that don't know. They have a lot of guys questionable. Keldon Johnson's questionable. Devin Vassell is probable. Trey Jones is questionable. Malachi Branham is questionable. Romeo Langford is out. Isaiah Roby is out. And then Kim Birch has been out for a while. Man, who actually ends up playing for this team and the starting lineup is going to impact this slate so much that it's kind of hard to talk about, to be honest. So, like, if Keldon Johnson plays, he's a fine play, not someone I'm really trying to force in the lineups. But if he ends up being out, then that's a nice increase in usage for guys like Sachan, even Zach Collins, so they become more viable for me. Devin Vassell should be on a minutes limit. That's why we only have him projected for 20 after his knee surgery. Trey Jones is fine if he plays. I actually like him a bit more than Keldon Johnson if he plays, but he's questionable, so who knows? Keita Bates Diop for me would be more viable if like Keldon Johnson ends up being out and if he's starting. So that's kind of the only situation I'll be okay with playing him, but his price tag's pretty intimidating. Malachi Branham is viable on this slate, but again, he's more viable if like Trey Jones and or Keldon Johnson end up being out. Devontae Graham, I'm not really a big fan of unless Branham, Jones are both out. Then he becomes more interesting for sure. And then Charles Bazzi, backup center for this team, 3,800. I'll need to compare his value to the other value we have on this slate, but more than likely I'll probably just be around field weight. He won't be a core play for me or anything like that. Just not how I do it. Just because he's a backup center, I don't like having a ton of exposure to backup centers, but I'm fine being close to field weight on a guy like Bazzi who has a lot of upside even when he plays limited minutes. On a 4-game slate, that kind of plays okay, but not one that I want to go over the field on. Ideally, we get better value. That's what I'm really hoping for. Better value, but we'll see if that actually comes through. Next up, we have the Clippers against the Golden State Warriors, and it's kind of boring from the Clippers standpoint, at least. They're healthy. They're all healthy, which just makes them feel like more of a blah play. We've been on a hot train getting Kawhi Leonard right. Like, I don't think anyone's been talking about it, but like we've been getting him right like every single slate, and he's been low owned almost every single slate. So yeah, I'm bragging on myself a little bit, but I think it's a little well deserved. It's hard to get Kawhi Leonard right, in my opinion. I don't feel as passionately about him on this slate though, to be honest. The price tag is starting to worry me a little bit, but I might still get there because of his low ownership. And because this is the last game on the slate, I always like being over the field on the last game of the slate. I think today, though, the last 2 slates, when we've been having the Clippers, I've been over the field on Paul George and Kawhi Leonard. But I think on this one, I want to just pick one. I don't think I want to go over the field on both. I'll have exposure to both, more likely than not, but I don't think I'm going to try to double my ownership on both. The matchup against the Golden State Warriors is a solid one, especially with the guys that they're missing. But still, not my favorite spot, to be honest. So I'm going to choose between these two. I feel like I'm probably going to end up picking Paul George, but we'll see. Russell Westbrook is definitely a viable play. He was really, really good last time out. I do want to dig a little bit deeper into that performance to see if I still feel good about him here. But again, the matchup against Golden State Warriors is a solid one. So I'm not overly concerned about that. And the ownership is low enough where I would feel comfortable going over the field on him. With Zubac playing, I'm not really interested in Plumlee or Zubac here. The other guys here, it's just that they have a lot of depth. I'm not a big fan of picking. It would not surprise me if one of these guys end up being in the Nuts lineup tomorrow, but I don't have a strong enough feeling or take or reason on any of them to really take a shot on them. So more than likely I won't unless something pops up while I'm doing research. Marcus Morris looks like he projects well. I need to dig deeper into it. I don't really feel super passionately about it. But for me, when it comes to the Clippers, it's really Paul George or Kawhi and Russell Westbrook. The rest of it, we'll see what the domination station gives me. Next up we have the Warriors. The Clippers have not been the best defense over the last few games. But they've also been allowing a lot of threes, so definitely makes you feel a little bit better about playing the Golden State Warriors because that's their sweet spot. Looks like Klay Thompson already has some decent ownership, so I'll probably be close to field weight exposure to him for the reasons we mentioned already. He doesn't really stand out too much as a guy that I want to force exposure to, but hopefully the domination station gives me enough on the initial run. I do like Jordan Poole. Again, I say this all the time. When Curry's out, which apparently Curry might play again next week, I thought he was going to be out for much longer, but I guess I just misunderstood the news on him. But with Curry out, Andrew Wiggins out, when Jordan Poole is relatively low owned, I'm always going to be over the field on him. I know he hasn't been in the best form. He's really been disappointing us as of late, but I'm going to keep playing him even if no one else is. DiVincenzo has really stepped it up here lately. He's also very viable on this slate. I am okay being over the field on him. He won't be like a forced leverage play or anything at this kind of ownership. But like if I get like 30, 35, I'm totally fine with that. Yeah. And then the rest of the bigs, I'm not super passionate about. So interesting slate. Fingers crossed for some big breaking news that really makes it more fun. But as of right now, I feel like when you run your lines, you're gonna have some pretty balanced builds, unless you take some shots on the value in the Pacers game. But it's a solid slate. We'll see how it turns out. So I look forward to seeing everyone who can join on the pre-lock show later today at 5:30 p.m. Eastern time. And if you can't do that, look forward to seeing you all tomorrow. Have a good one. Peace out. Bye.